About world and national events from the mind of a military veteran that has served and defended this country since 1978. Insight that has been molded by the commitment and sacrifices of the Americans that are defending and have defended our freedoms for the past 247 years. Unfiltered, unedited, certainly not PC. We are those people. Stand up and stand firm. Today's a little bit different. No music, no ads, just me, straight through, talking about a few topics we've got for today. Right now, I'll hit a little admin note for all my viewers out there for View from Military Mind. April 16th through May 2nd, I will be on military duty. I will not be able to have a show on those weekends during that time frame, and I will not be able to have my normal appearance on Moving It Right on Tuesdays and Thursdays during that time frame. So I hope you bear with me. I do have to continue serving my country for a little while longer. I know a lot of you have asked, well, I thought you retired. Well, the Guard has brought me back so we can finish some things that were not properly taken care of beforehand. And for those of you wondering about my hair, it's a little windy outside here in North Alabama. We got storms coming through. So, yeah, I was outside for a little bit before I come in, getting myself prepared. All right. But anyway, those are the admin notes. I will try to have a spot appearance on Moving It Right from Camp Shelby, if it's possible. We'll see how that goes and see how that works. But I want everybody to bear with me. And I'm not blowing the show off. I do have military duty to take care of. All right. Today we're going to talk about the SCOTUS, Supreme Court of the United States, has actually ruled against greasy Gavin Newsom out of California. They've ruled against California's limits on in-home religious gatherings. So the socialist state of California has had a setback, and we'll get into that here in just a little bit. We'll talk about Joe Biden, legislation by fiat. I know a lot of people accuse President Trump of that, but this man's really gotten out of hand. He's going in after gun control, and states the Second Amendment isn't absolute. Okay. Those of you joining me, if you got some opinions on that, by all means, you can find me on Facebook. You can chat through there and on YouTube. You can get on the chat on there. Send me your opinions and your ideas, and we'll go from there. Also, with Mr. Biden, he's proposing a $715 billion military budget for 2022, and we'll get into what's in that. Far below what President Trump had originally estimated needed to be for the military at this time. And there's some changes that aren't exactly what we would like to see. So then we'll have my opinion about conspiracy theories and disrespecting the military by people with paper assholes. And we'll get into that, and I'll tell you how that came about without being too crazy. And anyway, as I started out, we'll talk about the Supreme Court. They have ruled, as I said, they have ruled against California's limits on in-home religious gatherings. Then they made a divided decision late Friday that ruled in favor of lifting these restrictions on in-home religious gatherings, overturning a lower court ruling that upheld Governor Newsom's limits on people from different homes gathering. And of course, it divided down pretty much conservative and liberal lines within the Supreme Court. It was a 5-4 decision. It follows similar decisions recently regarding churches and the coronavirus pandemic. The decision noted it was the 5th time the court has rejected the Ninth Circuit's analysis of California coronavirus restrictions. When's the Ninth Circuit going to learn? You just can't pass all this crap and expect everybody to follow through with it when you're trying to restrict their rights of freedom. Now, Chief Justice John Roberts dissented, but he did not sign the dissenting statement submitted by Justices Elena Kagan, Sonia Sotomayor, and Stephen Breyer. The ruling stated that before it can limit religious gatherings, The government must prove they pose a greater danger than secular activities that remain open, such as shopping or attending movies or going out to your restaurant, that they've allowed, to stay open. So otherwise, precautions that suffice for other activities suffice for religious exercise also. The majority opinion said, adding that California treats some comparable secular activities more favorable than at-home religious exercise, permitting hair salons, retail stores, personal care services, movie theaters, private suites at sporting events, and concerts and indoor dining at restaurants to bring together more than 3 households at a time. So, and I agree with what the Supreme Court's got here. It's right. You can't restrict one and not the others. It says the majority opinion added the state can't assume the worst when people go to worship, but assume the best when people go to work or out for entertainment. And that was a quote from a previous ruling that they had given on this. Now, Justice Kagan, who ruled against easing restrictions, along with Breyer and Sotomayor and John Roberts, wrote in the dissenting opinion that the state has complied with the First Amendment because it also restricts secular at-home gatherings to 3 households. How that, I really don't see where her thinking is on this, that they've complied with the First Amendment. You've still restricted those same people because it's based on, it's stupid. California has adopted a blanket restriction at home gatherings of all kinds, religious and secular alike. She wrote in her dissent. It and goes on to say that the law does not require that the state equally treat apples and watermelons, and saying that in-home gatherings shouldn't be compared to businesses. The lawsuit brought by residents in Santa Clara County who hold in-home religious meetings and claimed restrictions infringing their constitutional rights. And a federal judge had ruled against that suit, which was upheld by the Ninth Circuit in San Francisco before being overturned by the Supreme Court. Now, Justice Kagan really amuses me with some of her analogies here. Treating apples and watermelons. A gathering is a gathering, no matter where you're at. It can be in your home. It could be in a restaurant. I mean, some homes are quite large. It says here the state, and she goes on to say here that the state reasonably concluded that when people gather in social settings, their interactions are likely to be larger or longer than they would be in a commercial setting. And this is what the Ninth Circuit wrote of the federal court's findings, that participants in a social gathering are more likely to be involved in prolonged conversations, and that private houses are typically smaller and less ventilated than commercial establishments, and that social distancing and mask wearing are less likely in private settings, and enforcement is more difficult. In other words, you can't absolutely control everybody within their home, which is why we have freedoms. You're not supposed to have the government inside your house. You're not supposed to be in there trying to enforce some archaic socialistic law that restricts all your freedoms. So Justice Kagan needs to get her head out of the sand and quit trying to be a socialist and be a justice and look at this stuff evenly and fairly, and remember what the Constitution says, not what she thinks it ought to say. Same way with the others, Breyer and Sotomayor and Justice John Roberts. I mean, I don't know what you guys are trying to do up there, but you can't legislate from the bench, and you've been trying to do that for some time. Now, this is a hit at California. Hopefully, they're going to start chipping away at some of the crap that's going on out there. We've heard several media types rail against them. One of them being Tommy Lauren, which I do watch occasionally. I don't agree with everything she has, but when it comes down to California being the type of state that they are, everybody's saying it. Everybody is looking at it as a socialist state. So I think Newsom needs to go. They need to get themselves turned around out there before they start having more and more people leave the state and moving somewhere else. So, but that's my small opinion and thoughts about what the Supreme Court did. I'm glad they did that. I'm glad they reversed the whole thing. And I'm glad they're giving some of the freedoms back to the people, especially religious freedoms, as much as the Christian faith or any faith has been attacked around here. So it is what it is. So, but anyway, moving on. Like I said, California's getting their just dues. They're getting things turned around. And hopefully they get the best going on with them here. Sorry about this. I'm trying to clear out my phone before things go haywire. Anyway, but that's what we had. Supreme Court has ruled against California and their restrictions on religious gatherings within homes. Hopefully that flows over into stopping the restrictions on churches, synagogues, temples, mosques, whatever they have that they're applying these archaic socialistic restrictions on. Now, moving on to Joe Biden here. Legislating by fiat. I mean, this guy has gone absolutely apeshit with all these executive orders, and we can go into all of them that he's got. I'm not going into the one I'm going to concentrate mostly on today is the most recent one concerning with gun control. Now he's preparing himself to tackle ghost guns and assault weapons again. Here we go. This man has no clue what he's doing, and the people is pushing him to do it. The White House did confirm on Friday that Joe Biden will sign an executive order on gun control. During Friday's White House press conference, Caitlin Collins from CNN, Communist News Network, had asked, should we still be expecting executive orders from the president on gun measures? And of course, Jim Psaki, the White House press secretary, said yes, and said there isn't an exact time frame on a gun control action. But she will note that when the president was vice president Obama, here we go back to the Obama-Biden administration, he helped put in place 23 executive actions to combat gun control. And they think it's one of the levers they can use, it's leverage. And she says that any federal government, any president can use to help address the prevalence of gun violence and address community safety around the country. How about enforcing the current laws we have and quit letting these people back out? I'm sorry, unless you're out on the street, you guys are up there in your crystal towers and don't obviously see. A criminal don't care about any gun laws or registrations or restrictions or anything of that nature. He's going to get his weapons one way or the other, and there are so many floating around out there. How about let's address that issue? Let's get the criminals off the street. Let's start holding them incarcerated like they're supposed to be. And I know some of you are going to say, well, they're all overcrowded. And okay, we need a resolution to this. Okay, how about let's start support law enforcement. Help them get those illegal guns off the street. Help them go out there and stop all this crime and this mess instead of doing stupid things like defunding the police and fighting with them all the time. How about getting the mentality within the neighborhoods where this stuff occurs? Get that mentality changed. Get them taught moral standards. How about changing the stupid stuff you teach in our schools where you're trying to indoctrinate them on a socialist level of kumbaya, all this crap? Parents, how about teaching your kids that some of this stuff is wrong? There's a lot of other ways we can do this without taking guns away from rifle owners, weapons and this assault weapon crap. I don't have the capability to buy a true assault weapon that fires automatic or 3-round bursts. I don't have that capability. There should be no one have that capability unless you're properly vetted, licensed, and investigated. We have that stuff in place. There are things that we have agreed, need to be done. Then you talk about the individuals that got the weapons that, the recent shootings. Let's start looking at some of this stuff before it happens instead of being reactive and knee-jerk and come up with dumb things. Now it goes on, they call it an epidemic across the country, and they need to address the threat of gun violence across many avenues, and says he will, and he's committed to doing that. Supposedly he's been doing this for several weeks. So it's absolutely crazy the kind of things that he's thinking about. He's hinted at, one of his first actions are going to have to do with 3D printed weapons and imported firearms. Okay. What are you going to do? Tell people they can't have a 3D printer and they can't do this? I want to see that enforcement take place. He says that he's looking at the kind of authority that he has relative to import guns, is whether or not I will have the authority to, of course, he stumbles around. These new weapons that are being made by 3D equipment aren't registered as guns at all. So he couldn't even stay within the topic of what he was talking about. He goes from imported weapons to 3D. I'm not sure. You got senators urging Biden to take an executive action on ghost guns, which are homemade or handmade firearms or gun kits that the buyer assembles themselves. They don't have to be registered to have a serial number. And ATF does not regulate the kits as firearms. And now these lawmakers want these ghost guns classed as firearms, which require a background check. I can't speak too much on those. I've never built or bought one of these ghost guns. Everything I've ever had has had to be registered. So I don't know where they're going to on this. I'll look into that one. And on Tuesday, he called for a ban on assault weapons and high-capacity magazines. We had this before. Even despite what they claim, it didn't help or work. Because most of your actions are taken by smaller handguns, things of that nature. Yeah, a lot of these guys have been caught with high-capacity magazines. Some of the bigger events have happened, did have the larger weapons involved, but it's not a huge thing with the millions of guns out there. How about the murders that occur on the streets of Chicago with a 22 caliber or 38 or a 9mm handgun, and not with an assault rifle? Yeah, these others make the news. We've had 10 fatalities, and my heart goes out to the people in Atlanta and in Colorado. I understand that. But if you look at the big picture like they should be looking at, these aren't prevalent situations compared to the daily crime and the daily shootings and murders that are going on in the metropolitan cities and even some of the smaller cities. It's not the big percentage, but the mainstream media will have you believe that it is, that this happens every day. It's a common thing. And, at least every month we're going to have a mass shooting. Thank you, media. I appreciate the mainstream media really pumping this up and making it a thing. And it's not. Yes, it is tragic. Yes, it needs to be addressed. Yes, it needs to be taken care of. But how about let's look and see what caused it, what happened, what was going on prior to this individual, and see if we can get it early, get it stopped beforehand. Most people, you have to be 21 before you can get a handgun. You can be, in some states, 16 to get a rifle. Okay. I'm all for, mom and dad buying a weapon for their kid and teaching them. Here it comes back down again to the parents, teaching the child how to handle a handgun, what the ramifications are. And then our school standing behind that also say, hey, don't do this. And if we've got some mental issues going on, or if he's been bullied, or if he's got something going on, him or her, let's get that addressed before you hand him that handgun. But to legally own it and to register it, okay, let's make it 21 or 18 before they can go out and buy a rifle, a high capacity magazine, things like that. Make it 18. I can go with that. Before that, the parents got to be in total control of it and hold the parent responsible. My God, you can't tell me the mom and dad doesn't know that kid's got that gun in there and left out with it. There's other people can be held responsible besides the actor or the individual that committed the crime. Let's find the people that didn't give a shit and let him do what he wanted to. Well, I didn't see what he was doing because he didn't pay attention. I can promise you when my girls were growing up, I knew what they were doing. I paid attention to what they were doing. They were shown and taught how to handle a handgun or how to respect a handgun, what the consequences of a handgun or rifle. I keep saying handgun, but that means any kind of weapon. And I don't see, majority kids aren't going out there and hurting and killing people. So let's get this within a perspective that it needs to be in and address that instead of across the board trying to make everybody lose everything they've got. You know, Biden says he doesn't need to wait another minute, let alone another hour, to take common sense steps that will save lives in the future. You know, we can ban assault weapons and high-capacity magazines in this country once again. I got it done when I was a senator. It passed. It was a law for the longest time, and it brought down these mass killings. We should do it again. Mr. Biden, I don't know where you're getting your stats from, but banning these two particular items didn't decrease anything. Didn't decrease a damn thing. And that's stats from some of your own people, some of your liberal media. Didn't tell me anything. He's calling for more stringent background checks. You know, he can close the loopholes in our background check system, including the Charleston loophole. You know, okay, close up the loopholes that allow some people to get weapons that shouldn't have them. Make sure you're doing it right. Make sure you got proof that there's something wrong, they can't have a weapon. Not some of this crazy ass red flag laws are coming in that by suggestion he's incapable of owning a weapon or she's incapable of owning a weapon just because somebody made an opinion about their mental capacity or their mental status or their criminal background. Let's check that stuff first before you start taking people's weapons away. Like the man up north somewhere, his wife just made the accusation that he had weapons in the house. And the police took all of his weapons, and they had no evidence he ever used a weapon. He was a concealed handgun permit carrier. He was legal. He never pulled his handgun out during the confrontation with his estranged wife. But her being a vengeful individual and probably very liberal, just told the police, yeah, you can come in and look, you know, get the weapons. He's got weapons in here. Really? You allow another individual, even though it's your spouse, to infringe upon someone else's rights to own a weapon when there's no evidence of him doing any wrongdoing with that weapon? She needs to go to jail. She needs to go to jail for false accusations and false charges and inciting improper police actions. Yeah, the background check, the Second Amendment attack is just getting worse and worse and worse. You know, and then Biden goes on to say that the Second Amendment is not absolute. It's like, you got to be kidding me. How is it? What's so hard to understand about what is within the Second Amendment? It tells you who and who cannot have. It tells you what the reason behind it is. He says, nothing I'm about to recommend in any way impinges on the Second Amendment. They're phony arguments suggesting that these are Second Amendment rights and what we're talking about. No amendment to the Constitution is absolute. Right. You can't yell fire in a crowded movie theater and call it freedom of speech. No, they've proven that. They had a reason. But he doesn't have a reason for what he's going through with this. And from the very beginning, you couldn't own any weapon you wanted to own. From the very beginning, the Second Amendment existed. Certain people weren't allowed to have weapons. And those were the controls that were put in place. Yes, I can't see. Well, actually, he's wrong on that because I can remember, not personally, but historically, I've read back when the Thompson submachine gun, you could go buy one. Historical evidence, you could get those. There's people come home with machine guns, World War I, World War II. You know, there were people possessed Gatling guns from the Civil War in the West and the conflicts out west. So please, Joe, wake up long enough to actually read your history. And it hasn't always been that way from the start of the Second Amendment. And if you remember when the Second Amendment was created, everybody had a musket. Everybody had some kind of sharps or whatever. Flintlock, Everybody had those weapons, to include the military grade, because your guys would come out of the military, take them home because they hunted for food and stuff on the table. So stop being stupid and quit telling lies from your position as the president of the United States, which pains me to say that's what you do. So they've announced 6 actions to spur various gun control initiatives, which the White House described in a fact sheet. Now, I did not get that fact sheet, so I have not seen it. Now, the Justice Department will propose a rule to curb proliferation of ghost guns, or guns that are assembled at home through kits or 3D printer. So here's where we make the correlation between 3D printing and ghost guns. And they will issue a yearly report on firearms trafficking and other initiatives. Okay, this goes back to your border and your ports and things of that nature. How about let's get those secured back up again? I mean, the southern border is about as porous as a piece of sponge. People are coming through there like, water through a boot. So how about let's fix that and stop that going on down there? Now, Biden's also nominated David Chapman to head the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, a former SWAT agent with the Bureau. Chapman is a gun control advocate and advisor to former Congresswoman Gabrielle Giffords' gun control organization. So here we go. No disrespect to his service as a SWAT agent or as a Bureau man with the ATF. But yeah, you're a little too liberal to be holding on to things like that. Chapman claimed in a Reddit post last year that members of the Branch Davidian religious cult shot down 2 Texas National Guard helicopters during the 1993 siege at Waco. Yeah, they shot at them, but they didn't shoot them down. So here we've got another storyteller that's going to give us a lie, and he's going to be in charge of alcohol, tobacco, firearms, and explosives. Have you gotten scared yet? Has it scared you yet? We got to get these people out of there. This is absolutely stupid and insane. They're going to take away our Second Amendment rights. They're going to take away common owned weapons. They're going to do everything to make us in their liking. And I'm not buying it. I'm not going for it. Anyway, moving on to our third topic in the main topics. Again, your president, Joe Biden, is proposing $715 billion military budget for 2020. Here's a little bit of what's in it. Now, granted, it is approximately a 1.5% defense spending increase over the 2021 budget, but the number falls short of President Trump's $722 billion defense budget forecast for 2022. Now, the Office of Management and Budget said the funding request would fund programs to deter China, increase U.S. Navy shipbuilding, modernize the U.S. nuclear arsenal, and invest in new long-range strike capabilities. Okay. The discretionary request prioritizes the need to counter the threat from China as the department's top challenge. The department also seeks to deter destabilizing behavior by Russia, leveraging the Pacific Deterrence Initiative and working together with allies and partners in the Indo-Pacific region and NATO. And DoD would ensure the United States builds the concepts, capabilities, and posture necessary to meet these challenges. How about putting some of this towards to pay for the soldiers and make it worthwhile for them to come into the military? Sorry about that. I keep banging my watch on the desk here. It's like, now, the defense spending is part of a larger 2022 federal budget request worth $1.5 trillion. And includes $769 billion in non-defense discretionary spending. And that's an increase of 16%. So we're going to increase the funding on non-defense discretionary, which means they can spend it as they damn well please. We're going to increase that by 16% over what we actually need for the military to keep themselves up to speed, keep themselves relevant, and keep themselves ready to fight. But no, we're going to make sure we get all these pork barrel things taken care of first, and the military can suck on tit and get what we can. Now, the Republican lawmakers have issued a joint letter criticizing Biden's military spending proposal, describing it as a disappointing defense budget, and it is. Of course, Mitch McConnell and Jim Ioff and Marco Rubio and Lindsey Graham and Richard Shelby all wrote President Biden said, if we don't get moving, China is going to eat our lunch. Today's budget proposal signals to China that they should set the table. Why Biden has prioritized spending trillions on liberal wish list priorities here at home, funding for America's military is neglected. And I have to agree in part with that. And we knew this was going to happen. Okay. Biden is not a military person. He's not a big military supporter, though, he does talk out of both sides of his face over it. We have to keep up with our adversaries. China's defense spending has increased by $200 billion, while America's decreased by $400 billion. China's military investments match its desire to outcompete America and hold our military forces at risk. We could not win a sustained war right now with China or Russia. We really couldn't. We're depleted. I see it myself. I'm there to see it. I say, and you can't forever rely on your reserve forces to pick up the slack for your active duty, because the active duty has been stripped. It's not their fault. But you look at all these lawmakers that go in there and strip these budgets down and strip all the things, but they're going to add in, we have to address extremism within the military. Really? And more mandatory training over dumb shit. In my most recent venture, the active duty people spent more cotton picking time in classrooms learning about diversification and equal opportunities and all kinds of extraneous things. Granted, they're important, but when it comes at a cost of them knowing how to do their job, I had aircraft mechanics that hadn't touched a helicopter in two or 3 months. And then they touch it for a month or two, and then 2 or 3 months more, because now they're off doing some other extraneous mandatory training. So it's not that they're incompetent. They're inexperienced. They're untrained. And some of these people have been there for 3 and 4 years. It's not their fault they can't do the job. So, of course, you're going to drag in your National Guard because they do it on a daily basis. A lot of your reserves. And, yes, there is a difference between the National Guard and the reserves. Reserves are federal. National Guard is run by the state until they're federalized to go help the federal side. Okay. But the National Guard does it every day. Your helicopter mechanics, your truck mechanics, your infantrymen, they go and do this work every day. And they're not encumbered with a lot of this mandatory training that goes on until their drill weekend. They get it all knocked out in one weekend. Can the active duty guys do that? Probably. I don't know. The way they're set up, probably not. But, and then of course we go into, Biden's defense spending cut doesn't even keep up with inflation. Meanwhile, non-defense discretionary budget increased by almost 20% in this budget, on top of the trillions of dollars in new non-national security programs the administration is intent on spending this year. So you're going to blow your money on everything but what you need to be blowing it on, but we're going to make all your supporters happy. And we're going to make all the illegal aliens you're letting in happy, because you're going to piss out more money to them that they have neither earned or worked for, or whatever you want to put it. We're just going to hand it to them because they walked across the border illegally. The last time I looked at laws, those are criminals. Okay. Granted, the children, I don't have an answer for that. That breaks my heart to see just children being dumped over a fence and brought in someplace without their parents. But on the flip side of it, you're trying to find families here and being successful in some cases. What's going on here? Close the damn borders. Let's put an end to this mess. All right. Like I said, the spending, we've got to have it increased. It's probably not going to happen. Not in this administration. You're going to see and this is just my estimate. This is my opinion. Please keep in mind, I don't speak for any entity. This is my opinion. This is based on the things that I read, I see, and research. That we're going to see another post-Vietnam era um, drawdown, teardown of our military. We're going to see our military get a lot smaller because, let's face it, the current administration has no desire, no interest in boosting our military or keeping them at sustainable levels that are effective and reactionary. We're going to get involved in the Iran nuclear deal again, which was a joke from the beginning. I said that before President Trump ever came around, that it was terrible. But we're going to get involved in that cotton picking thing again. I'm going to try to renegotiate troop placements in Europe again. We've shown, yes, Germany is our ally. Yes, we need to support them. We don't need to have all of our troops there. There's other places we need our troops put at to sustain. The Ukraine is one of them. Several countries. I mean, these countries have finally gotten themselves free, but Russia is still trying to infiltrate their way in. I mean, look at the Crimea. They just went in there and took that, and we did nothing. And I don't care who the administration was at the time. That was a mistake, letting them have the Crimea. Oh, we don't want to get involved. Sometimes you've got to, because when they start knocking on your door because they're now in the backyard, you head out of your fifth point of contact and let's do what we're supposed to be doing. So that's the stories I'm covering today. Now then, on my opinion on some stuff, this week I had an incident occur to me personally that really got my craw and really bothered me a whole lot. And in fact, it actually resulted in a loud exchange between me and the individual that was running his mouth. Conspiracy theories and disrespecting the military by people with paper assholes. They're talking out both sides of their mouth and out through their ass. They don't know what they're talking about. If you're going to go out there and talk about a subject, this is what I say through every one of my shows. I say it on MRI a lot of times. Educate yourself before you open your mouth. You know, it is better to keep your mouth shut and be thought a fool than open your mouth and remove all doubt. Okay. This individual decided he was going to make the point that if the government keeps going the way they do and they put the military forces against the American people, that the number of guns and militias out there would kill everybody in the army and whip their asses. And it struck me wrong, because I know from my viewpoint as a military man, we're not going to go against the American people. Now, if it's somebody individual, we've got somebody having a small insurrection. That's what our job is, to protect the American way of life, to protect us from enemies, both foreign and domestic. But we're not going to go out there and just totally turn against the American people and just start arresting them and shooting them up. We have rules and regulations in place to keep that from happening. Now, if your local militia group that is untrained and uneducated, that think they want to get out there and try to start a shooting war, your first line of defense is going to be your law enforcement to begin with. Your local sheriff, your local deputy, your local police department, your local constabulary, your state troopers, FBI, ATF. Those people are going to be there first before you ever call the military in. And it better be a very significant situation to be calling the military in, especially armed and ready to kill someone. We're trained. We know how to do that. But we're not here to do it on American soil. And in the same vein, they're going to call in the National Guard for assistance before they ever call in the main military forces. So before you go out there shooting your mouth off and saying stupid things like, your militias are going to whip the Army's ass, make sure you know what you're talking about. When you start saying dumb things like that, especially when you're talking about some silly ass little group of people that think they're military trained, make sure you know what you're talking about. Most of them aren't trained militarily. You know, don't accuse the military of going out there. We're Americans also. We have feelings for this country. We're not going to go up against the American people because some government agency tells us we have to. We can refuse illegal orders. It's written in our regulations. It's written in the laws of the land. It's written in the laws, the federal laws. We can tell them pound sand. Of course, now we've got some people at top echelons that may bend over and kiss the butt of the administration and try to do something like that. But we have enough people still in place in the military to stop it, to keep us from doing something stupid. And Brian Gibson, glad to see you on here. 26-year Army veteran. Thank you for your service, brother. But you know what I'm saying? We're not going to go out there and just start, incarcerating and shooting the American people because some political hack decided that's what they want. And if you're a conspiracy theorist and trying to push that particular thing, you know better than they are. Okay? You need to be arrested for treason for trying to incite violence when there's no need for such, especially when you're trying to accuse the military of inciting the violence. And you've never been in the military to know what we're talking about. So please, the man with the paper asshole, you need to shut up. Because I can promise you, somebody from the military is going to push it in for you. And it was almost me this week. So that's my opinion. That's my view from my military mind for Saturday, this beautiful April day, April 10th. And again, I'll remind everybody that April 16th through May 2nd, I will not be on the show. I will not have a show. I will not. Thank you, Brian. I appreciate that. Just so you know, Brian, I was a medevac crew chief up until about 2 years ago. So yeah, you're like me. We may be slow, but we're still there. I can still pick my gun up. But as I started to say, admin note, April 16th through May 2nd, I will not have a show on the weekends. I will be on military duty. And I will not be on Moving It Right. As most of you know, I am a co-host on Moving It Right on Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, 10 o'clock Central, with Rich Ashton, your host on Moving It Right. Sorry about that, Rich, if you're listening somewhere out there. That is a political talk show, and we defend our rights and support our Constitution. Of course, you're watching View from Military Mind. This is my opinions, my thoughts on current news and specific topics from my military mind, and I give you my opinion every Saturday at 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And I appreciate everybody for being here. Y'all have a great, wonderful, safe weekend. And until I return, which will be on, the weekend of May 8th will be my next show. So May 8th, and I'll post it up on my Facebook page. View from Military Mind, visit us there. You can write us at VFAMM2020. Brian, if you'd like to be on my show, I'd love to have you as a guest. We can sit here and swap war stories and tell people how we feel and what we think about what's going on. So I'm going to have to look at this forward operating base at projectdiehard.org, and we'll see what we can do there. Thank you for that little point, Brian. But yeah, write to us at VFAMM2020 at gmail.com if you'd like to be a guest on the show. Send me a little bit of what you think about. You can visit us on Facebook. We have both a group and a regular page. And we are on YouTube, View from Military Mind. So, all right, Brian, I'll PM you. But until May 8th, I wish you the best. Be safe. Be careful. Stand your ground. Stand up and stand firm. This is your host, Terry Mills from View from Military Mind, wishing you a wonderful weekend, and God bless America. Until May 8th, be good.